Okay, so welcome to the deep dive. Today we're going to be tackling a question that I think is really interesting and I think a lot of people who are into this kind of stuff think about,
Mhm.
which is why is it that some learning just feels like second nature, but other subjects you really have to put in the work?
Yeah.
Like why is it so easy to learn language,
Yeah.
but then something like math just feels like pulling teeth sometimes?
Totally.
And we're diving into this whole intersection of evolutionary psychology and education to try to get some answers.
Yeah.
And our guide for this deep dive is this article called Evolutionary Perspectives on Educational Psychology, Motivation, Instructional Design, and Child Development.
It's a great article.
It is.
And, and it's a huge topic.
Yeah.
But I think our mission today is to really understand, how our evolutionary past might be playing a role in how we learn. And even in the social dynamics we see, like in schools.
Yeah,
You know?
absolutely. I mean, it's
Yeah.
something we've all experienced, right? Like picking up our first language. It just happens.
You know?
Mm-hmm.
But then you try to learn a new math concept, and it's like, oh my gosh, this is so much work.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So this deep dive is really going to try to shed some light on that contrast.
Okay.
And we're going to explore how, the way our minds have evolved over time influence everything from our motivation to learn, to how we design effective instruction, and even, how kids interact with each other in school.
Like, why is it that some kids, seem to just get good grades without even trying, and other kids really struggle?
Yeah.
And we're going to be digging into some core questions here, like why does learning your native tongue
Right.
feel so different from trying to wrap your head around, abstract geometry?
It's so different.
It really is.
Yeah.
And why is it that, students often seem to care more about their physical appearance or where they stand socially, how many friends they have and stuff like that, than
Yeah.
they do about their grades?
I mean, think back to high school. It was all about...
It's in social dynamics,
Yes,
right? More than like acing that English test.
Exactly.
Okay.
And then there's this whole thing about bullying. Right. Why does that seem to stick around no matter what we do?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, we've got all these anti-bullying programs and everything, but it's still there.
It's tough.
Yeah, and this article we're looking at, it provides like a really fascinating lens to examine these issues through.
It does.
So,
Yeah. It's a cool exploration of this whole field of evolutionary educational psychology, which, by the way,
yeah,
it's a growing field.
it is.
It's really interesting.
Yeah, and it's important to remember right from the get-go that this isn't about saying that, like,
Right.
everything is determined by our genes.
Oh, yeah,
You know,
for sure.
this is more about looking at like these underlying tendencies and predispositions
Mm-hmm.
that we've inherited through evolution over, thousands and thousands of years.
Yeah, over millennia. Right.
And how those tendencies interact with, the culture
Right.
and the educational environments that we've created,
Yeah.
that we're raising kids in now.
Okay, so let's jump right into this contrast between effortless and effortful learning.
Okay.
Right? Because the article's abstract right off the bat. It
Yeah.
highlights this difference.
Right.
You know how language acquisition seems to come so naturally to us?
That would just happen.
Right. But then subjects like math usually require a lot of explicit teaching.
There's so much teaching
So-
and cognitive effort.
Right. So what's the evolutionary angle here? Like, why is that?
Well, the really fascinating thing is that our brains, they've evolved over time to become super efficient
Yeah.
at processing certain types of information. And that information just happened to be crucial for survival back in the day, like in those ancestral environments.
Right.
So think about communication,
Yeah.
right? Being able to share information with each other,
Yeah.
warn each other about danger,
Right.
coordinate, hunting or gathering activities.
Right.
Language acquisition would have given our ancestors a huge advantage,
Okay.
right? Because it allowed for cooperation and it helped those groups stick together,
Okay.
So as a result, our brains kind of develop this like neural efficiency for language.
So like built-in, language processing.
Right. Yeah. It's like we're wired for it,
Yeah.
So the key takeaway here is that we're inherently wired for communication because it was so important for survival back then.
Right.
And that makes language acquisition just feel so much more natural
Yeah.
compared to things like, abstract concepts that didn't really offer any immediate survival benefits.
All right, because if you're out, on the savannah,
Yeah.
you don't need to know, abstract geometry to survive.
Exactly.
Right.
You need to be able to communicate.
Right.
You need to be able to work together
Right.
to, find food and avoid predators and all that.
And to attract mates and stuff like that.
Exactly. Yeah, so those things are going to be prioritized by evolution.
That makes total sense.
Yeah.
So it's like we've got this like built-in language operating system, you
Oh,
know?
yeah, I like that analogy.
And the article brings up this really influential paper from way back in 1995
Oh, yeah.
by David Geary.
Yeah.
And it was in American Psychologist.
Mm.
And he was looking at exactly this,
Yeah.
this intersection of evolutionary history and cultural development
Right.
and how it affects the way kids think,
Mm-hmm.
particularly when it comes to math.
Math is a great example.
Yeah, and I mean, Geary's work was really foundational in establishing this whole field.
It was groundbreaking.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And his core idea was that, like, okay, we might have some basic intuitive number sense
Yeah.
that's rooted in evolution.
Like knowing roughly how much of something there is.
Like quantities.
Yeah.
Right, but when you get to complex math concepts,
Right.
like algebra
Yeah.
or calculus,
Trigonometry.
yeah, all that
Yeah.
stuff.
That's all pretty much cultural inventions.
All right,
They don't have that same long evolutionary history to build upon,
okay,
unlike language.
gotcha.
So it makes sense that they'd be harder to learn.
That makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
And this leads perfectly into this concept that I absolutely love from John Nairn's 2022 article
Oh, yeah.
in Educational Psychology Review.
Okay.
It's this idea of learning and remembering with a Stone Age brain.
Oh, I love that.
I know.
Such a great image.
I know. It just paints such a vivid picture.
Yeah.
Right? And it really hammers home this point that, like,
Yeah.
our fundamental cognitive architecture,
Yeah.
like the way our brains are wired.
Yeah. A basic hardware.
Yeah, it evolved in a totally different world
Totally.
than the one we're trying to educate kids in today.
A much simpler world.
Right, right.
Like way back when.
Yeah, so our memory systems and the way we learn,
Yeah.
they're often prioritizing information that would have been super relevant for survival back then.
Yeah.
Right, like knowing where to find water,
Yeah.
identifying edible plants,
Mhm.
recognizing, a friend from an enemy.
Right. Or a predator from prey.
Yeah.
Those were life or death situations.
Yeah.
And so our brains evolved to be really good at those things.
Right.
But like abstract geometry, like you were saying earlier,
Yeah.
that just wasn't on the radar.
Right.
There's a 2013 study by Dylan Huang and Spelke that pointed this out.
Okay.
Like abstract geometry just wasn't a survival imperative back then.
Right.
It didn't matter for whether you lived or died.
Right.
Yeah.
So
So now when we try to teach it to kids,
right.
we're basically asking them to build entirely new cognitive structures.
Oh, wow.
Right. Through really deliberate instruction.
Yeah.
It's a big ask.
So if our brains aren't naturally wired for these, abstract subjects, what does that mean for how we should be teaching them?
That's the million-dollar question, right?
Right. And the article touches on this by mentioning cognitive load theory.
Oh, yeah, cognitive load theory.
And it references the work of Sweller and his colleagues.
Right. So basically, this whole idea that our brains are better suited to learning certain types of information,
Right.
it raises this like really crucial question for education, right?
Okay.
How do we teach these, more abstract, non-natural subjects
Right.
effectively?
Yeah.
Like, how do we do it in a way that doesn't just completely overwhelm students' brains?
Yeah.
Which, remember, we're still working with essentially a Stone Age brain,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
And that's where cognitive load theory comes in.
Okay.
So think of it like this, our brains have this limited working memory space
Okay.
when we're learning something new.
Right.
And Sweller's work basically emphasizes that if we're given too much new information all at once,
Okay.
or if the information isn't structured in a way that makes sense to our brains,
Yeah.
we overload that working memory.
Right.
And that makes it really hard to learn.
So it's like you're trying to cram, 10 pounds of stuff into a 5-pound bag.
Exactly. And it just doesn't fit.
Yeah.
So effective instructional design,
Yeah.
it has to take these cognitive limitations into account.
Okay. Yeah.
So, we need to break down those complex topics into smaller, more manageable chunks.
Right.
And give students really clear guidance.
Right. Like scaffolding.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah.
Scaffolding.
Yeah.
That's a great way to put it.
Okay. So let's shift gears a bit
Okay.
to another really interesting point that the abstract brings up.
Right.
Why is it that students' sense of self-worth
Yeah.
seems to be way more tied to things like their physical appearance
Right.
or their social standing
Hmm.
than to their academic achievements?
Yeah. Why is that? I mean, it seems kind of backwards, right?
I know.
Like, shouldn't we be more concerned with our education?
Well, I mean, think back to, when we were in school. I mean,
Yeah.
social dynamics felt way more important
Way
than
more.
getting an A on that English paper.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah. Like, who's dating who?
No.
Who's hanging out with who?
Yeah.
Who's wearing the cool clothes?
Right.
Felt huge.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Huge.
But getting good grades,
Yeah.
it wasn't as big of a deal.
Right.
So, yeah, it's a really interesting question.
So what's the evolutionary perspective on that?
Well, if you think about it from an evolutionary standpoint,
Yeah.
characteristics like physical attractiveness
Mature.
and social status,
Yeah.
they would have been super important for things like mate selection
Okay.
and access to resources
Right.
back in those ancestral environments.
Gotcha.
Right. So those factors directly impacted an individual's reproductive success
Right.
and their overall well-being.
Okay.
Like if you were attractive and you had high social status,
Yeah.
you were more likely to find a mate.
Right.
And you had better access to food and shelter and all that.
Right.
So you were more likely to survive and
Okay.
pass on your genes.
Right.
So evolutionarily speaking,
Yeah.
being well regarded socially
Yeah.
meant better chances of survival and reproduction,
Yeah.
So what you were saying earlier about social dynamics feeling more important than grades,
Yeah.
it makes sense.
Yeah.
Because on a fundamental level,
Yeah.
our brains are still prioritizing those ancient social cues.
Right.
It's like our brains are still stuck in the savannah in a way,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. So being part of a strong social group,
Mhm.
being seen as desirable,
Yeah,
those things had very tangible survival advantages
it did.
back in the day.
Absolutely.
And the article mentions a 2022 paper by Geary and Zhu in Educational Psychology Review.
Oh, yeah, I know that one.
Yeah, and it specifically looks at the evolution of self-awareness
Mhm.
and how we develop these different facets of our self-concept.
Right.
The academic versus the non-academic.
Yeah, so that paper really digs into how our sense of self probably evolved first and foremost
Okay.
to navigate the social world effectively.
Okay.
Right. So it focuses on those aspects that were most relevant to group dynamics and survival.
Right.
Things like social status and relationships.
Right.
But this emphasis on academic achievement as like a primary part of self-worth,
Yeah.
that's a more recent development.
Yeah.
It's something we've kind of culturally constructed,
Right.
Like we've created this idea of an academic self-concept,
Yeah.
but it doesn't necessarily tap into those same deeply ingrained evolutionary priorities,
Gotcha.
like our social or physical self-perceptions do.
And the article also references Harder's work on the self in the Handbook of Child Psychology,
Oh, yeah.
and that provides a broader look at how self-concept develops throughout childhood.
Yeah, so Harder's research shows how, as kids grow up,
Yeah.
their self-perceptions get more nuanced and more differentiated
Okay.
across different domains.
Gotcha.
Like they start to see themselves differently in terms of their academics
Right.
versus their social life versus their physical abilities.
Right.
But what's interesting is that the evolutionary perspective adds this whole other layer to that understanding.
Okay.
It suggests that the importance we place on these different domains,
Right.
like whether we value social stuff more than academic stuff,
Right.
might actually be rooted in our ancestral past
Wow.
and what was important for survival and reproduction back then.
Right.
So it's like those ancient priorities are still influencing us today
Yeah.
in a way.
That's fascinating.
Yeah, it is.
And then there's the work of Patricia Hawley
Yes.
on social dominance and resource control.
Yeah.
Her research from 1999 and 2003 suggests social hierarchies
Yeah.
and, all the strategies we use to navigate them.
Right.
They have these deep evolutionary origins.
Look, we're programmed to compete
Right.
in a way.
So it's almost like the stuff we see in the schoolyard, like
Yeah.
all the social dynamics.
Yep.
They're not just random.
No, they're not random.
Right.
There's a pattern there.
Yeah.
And it's a pattern that's been playing out for a really long time.
Wow. So what did Hawley find exactly?
So Hawley's work basically indicates that even behaviors that we might consider negative in a school context,
Yeah.
Things like aggression or bullying,
Right.
can be understood within this evolutionary framework of competition for social status and resources.
Okay.
Again, this isn't to say that those behaviors are okay
No.
or that we shouldn't try to prevent them,
Right. Of course not.
but it helps us understand where they might be coming from,
Okay.
So if social standing historically meant you had better access to food and shelter and mates,
Yeah.
then it makes sense that our brains might be wired to pay attention to those social dynamics.
Right.
And even engage in behaviors that might enhance our position within the group,
Wow.
right? It's all about survival
Right.
at the end of the day.
So even something like bullying, which is obviously, a horrible thing,
Yeah,
it might have some kind of evolutionary explanation.
potentially.
Yeah.
It's a controversial idea,
It is.
but it's one that's worth exploring.
And it's important to emphasize again that, just because a behavior might have an evolutionary basis,
Right?
it doesn't mean we should just accept it. Right.
We still have a responsibility to teach kids right from wrong
Exactly.
and
Right.
to create a safe and supportive learning environment for everyone.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Which brings us to this really challenging point raised in the abstract.
Okay.
Why do these problematic social behaviors,
Mhm.
including bullying,
Yeah.
persist in schools?
It's the million-dollar question, right?
I know.
Like we've got anti-bullying programs.
We try so hard to stop it,
Yeah.
but it's still there.
It's really tough.
It is.
And the article points to some really interesting research by Tony Volk and his colleagues.
Okay.
They actually proposed like a revised definition of bullying in a 2014 developmental review article.
Okay.
And then they did this 10-year review in 2022 that was published in Educational Psychology Review.
Okay.
And in that review, they specifically explored this idea
Okay.
of whether adolescent bullying might have evolutionary roots.
Okay, so evolutionary roots for bullying.
Yeah, I know it's a controversial topic.
Yeah, and I think it's important to state right up front
Yes.
that understanding, a possible evolutionary basis for something
Right.
doesn't mean that it's okay
No, not at all.
or that we shouldn't try to prevent it.
Exactly.
Right.
This is not about excusing bullying
Absolutely.
in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
It's more about trying to gain a deeper understanding
Okay.
of why this behavior seems to be so persistent across different cultures
Right.
and throughout history.
Yeah.
So Volk and his team, they propose that certain types of aggression
Okay.
and social dominance behaviors
Right.
might have actually been adaptive
Okay.
in ancestral environments.
Okay.
So basically, they might have provided advantages in terms of getting resources
Right.
or attracting mates
Right.
back then.
So it's not that we're programmed to bully.
No.
Right. It's more like some of those underlying drives
Right.
related to social status and competition, which might have served a purpose in the past, can unfortunately manifest as bullying
Yeah.
in, the context of modern schooling.
Right. Because the environment is so different now.
Right.
Back then, those behaviors might have helped you survive.
Yeah.
But in a modern school, they're just harmful
Right.
and they need to be addressed.
Yeah. That's a much more nuanced and accurate way to frame it, I think.
I agree.
Okay. So we've talked about, why learning some things comes more naturally than others.
Yeah.
Why social and physical factors often play such a big role in self-concept.
Right.
And this complex idea of potential evolutionary roots for bullying.
Yeah.
So what are the major implications of all this for education?
Well, I think the main takeaway is that we need to start thinking about education
Okay.
through an evolutionary lens.
Okay.
The field of evolutionary educational psychology, as this article highlights,
Yeah.
it's all about building a bridge between our knowledge of evolved human nature
Right.
and the actual practice of education.
So how can we take what we know about evolution and use it to improve the way we teach and the way kids learn?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And David Geary actually wrote a great article about this in 2008,
Okay.
an educational psychologist.
Okay.
And he really clearly lays out that goal.
Yeah, it seems like there's this kind of tension between what we were talking about earlier, natural learning,
Right.
like how we just naturally pick up language and the need for structured formal education
Yeah.
in so many other areas.
Right, because a lot of the stuff we teach in school
Yeah,
is not stuff that our brains evolved to learn easily,
right.
like algebra, calculus, history. Those
Yeah.
are all cultural inventions.
Right.
And they require a different approach.
Right, and the article actually mentions Peter Gray's 2016 chapter on children's natural ways of learning.
Oh, yeah, I love Peter Gray's work.
Yeah, and also David Lancey's 2016 chapter on whether teaching is a natural or cultural phenomenon.
Both great chapters.
Yeah, and they really get at this tension.
They do.
You know?
Yeah, so like Gray's work, for example,
Yeah.
he really emphasizes the importance of play
Yeah.
and exploration in how kids learn naturally.
Right.
He argues that those are like deeply ingrained mechanisms
Oh.
for acquiring knowledge and skills.
Yeah.
So it's not just about sitting in a classroom and listening to a lecture.
Right.
Kids need to be actively engaged.
Right.
They need to be experimenting and exploring and figuring things out for themselves.
Right. In Lancey's chapter,
Yeah.
he examines all these different approaches to teaching across cultures, and he makes us think about which aspects of our educational systems are really aligned with our evolved tendencies
Right.
and which ones are more like culturally specific.
Yeah, like some cultures emphasize rote memorization,
Right,
while others focus more on hands-on learning.
right.
So it's interesting to see how those different approaches play out.
So maybe the key is to be more creative,
Yeah,
you know,
for sure.
in how we tap into those natural learning inclinations, even
Yeah.
when we're teaching abstract or culturally invented subjects.
Right, because at the end of the day,
Yeah,
we're still working with human brains
right,
that have been shaped by evolution.
right.
So we need to find ways to make the learning process
Yeah.
engaging and meaningful.
And the article references Bjorklund's 2022 work on children's evolved learning
Oh,
abilities
yes, Jocelyn.
and how they're relevant for education.
Yeah,
And he's saying that kids aren't just, passive recipients of information.
I know.
Right.
They're not just empty vessels waiting to be filled.
Right. They're active learners. They come preloaded with all this stuff.
Exactly. They come with all these cognitive biases
Yeah.
and predispositions that have been shaped by evolution.
Yeah.
So if we can recognize those
Yeah.
and use them to our advantage,
Right.
we can create much more effective learning experiences.
So, for instance, their strong drive to learn through imitation and play and social interaction.
Exactly.
We can use that.
Yeah, we can incorporate those things into our teaching
Okay.
and make learning more fun and engaging.
Yeah. Okay. And then there's motivation.
Oh, yeah, motivation.
It's right there in the title of the article.
Front and center.
Motivation, instructional design, and child development.
It's a key piece of the puzzle.
It really is.
Yeah.
So from an evolutionary standpoint,
Mm-hmm.
why are students motivated to learn some things
Right.
and not others?
Well, if you think about it from an evolutionary perspective,
Yeah.
motivation is often linked to behaviors that would have enhanced our chances of survival
Right.
and reproduction
Okay.
back in the day.
So things that would have helped us survive and
Yeah.
pass on our genes.
Exactly.
So what kinds of things would those have been?
Well, it could involve acquiring skills that would lead to higher social status
Okay.
or mastering tasks that would give you access to essential resources,
Right.
or even just satisfying our natural curiosity about the world around us.
So in the context of schooling,
Yeah.
how do we tap into those motivational drives?
That's the challenge, right? Because a lot of what we teach in school,
Yeah.
it doesn't necessarily feel like it has any immediate relevance to students' lives.
Right. They're like, why do I need to know this?
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
So I think the key is to find ways to connect academic learning to those more fundamental motivational drives.
Okay, how do we do that?
Well, one way is to highlight the real-world relevance of what they're learning. Show them how the stuff they're learning in school
Yeah.
can actually be useful in their lives.
Right.
Another way is to foster a sense of collaboration and social connection in the classroom,
Okay.
because remember,
Yeah.
we're social creatures
Right.
and we're motivated by social interaction.
It's a group work and stuff like that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then we can also tap into their natural curiosity
Okay.
by using things like exploration and discovery-based learning.
Right, like project-based learning,
Exactly.
where they get to kind of follow their own interests
Mm-hmm.
and figure things out for themselves.
Yeah, because when kids are curious, they're naturally motivated to learn.
So to kind of sum it all up,
Yeah.
this deep dive into evolutionary educational psychology,
It's been quite a journey.
it has,
Yeah,
but it's revealed this really fascinating framework,
it has.
right?
Yeah.
For understanding, why learning feels so different across subjects,
Mm-hmm.
why social dynamics are often front and center for students,
Yeah.
and even why certain challenging behaviors like bullying seem to stick around.
It's a lot to take in,
It is.
but it's really important stuff.
Yeah, and I think the main takeaway is that we're not blank slates when we enter the classroom.
We're not.
Right. We come preloaded with all this baggage.
I wouldn't say baggage.
Okay, well, you know what I mean.
I know what you mean.
We come with all this, evolutionary history.
Right, we come with a long evolutionary history
Okay.
that shaped our brains and our behaviors.
Yeah, and this perspective, it doesn't give us all the answers,
No, it doesn't.
but it gives us a new way of looking at things.
It does.
And that's valuable, And going back to what we were talking about with bullying,
Mhm.
understanding those potential evolutionary roots,
Right.
that's not about excusing bad behavior.
Yeah.
It's about potentially helping us come up with more effective strategies to
think
address it.
It's about finding solutions.